the fact that the meteorites could have both, helped to seed life as well as to wipe it out at a certain point in time, 60 million years ago. Not all life, but the dinosaur life. That was just really a cool analogy for me to be there, yeah. And to take part in a Werner Herzog movie. I'm Professor Nita Sahai. My department, I'm in the School of Polymer Science and Polymer Engineering, and also have a joint appointment in the Department of Geosciences and with the Integrated Bioscience Program. My research focuses on the interactions of organic molecules with mineral surfaces that may have played a role in the origins of life, and as well as in the formation of bone and other minerals in our body. I was invited to feature in a film on the role of meteorites in the origin and evolution of life on Earth, and how meteorites have been viewed culturally and socially by different people across the world in different periods of time. And this was actually a movie that was co-directed by the famous director Werner Herzog and Professor Clive Oppenheimer, who's a geologist at University of Cambridge in UK. And we went out to shoot my part of the movie at an impact crater site, a meteorite impact crater site in India. And they asked me about how meteorites may have brought organic molecules that preceded, what might have got life started on Earth. Yeah, and this movie was actually chosen for the Toronto Film Festival, and it was just released on Apple TV a couple of weeks ago. So actually, the movie was the idea came up from Dr. Clive Oppenheimer, and then he and Werner, who's a really famous director, as I mentioned before, of Grizzly Man and Mandalorian fame. He and Werner have made these movies, a movie before, and so they decided to co-direct this movie again. And I have done a special issue of a magazine on the origins of life and the roles of minerals and meteorites, which Clive first found, and he thought it was really nicely done in terms of being able to be outreach and understandable to the public. So he thought I would do a good job on this. Many big questions related to how life first got started is the question of how you form the early simple organic molecules then that are called monomers, and which then polymerize and become longer chains of molecules that have structure and function. And so my expertise is in trying to understand how these polymerization reactions may be occurring, how minerals might be promoting those conditions, what were the environmental conditions on the early Earth, and where did the original monomers come from? They could have been synthesized at the surface of the Earth, but in addition, there was probably a very large delivery of organic molecules from meteorites. There are certain classes of meteorites that are very rich in organic compounds that have been made out in outer space. And so they were delivering a lot of these simple starting compounds to the Earth. And so in the movie, they bring me to this crater site where right at the center of the crater, there's a temple, a Hindu temple dedicated to this god Shiva and his wife Parvati. And the two of them it's a tantric temple, which represents creation. And Shiva is also known as the god of death, or the destroyer of the universe. So both the formation and the destruction are kind of embodied in this temple. And that's kind of cool because meteorites may have delivered the organic molecules that got life started, but we also know that a very large meteorite impact about 60 million years ago wiped out the dinosaurs, which were the dominant animals at that time. And that's what allowed mammals to evolve and take over the planet effectively. So that's sort of the analogy there. So this is a really fascinating field. And one might ask, what is this? How come this research is happening in the School of Polymer Science and Polymer Engineering? Well, all the molecules that life uses are basically polymers. They're biopolymers versus the synthetic polymers that we're normally used to thinking about. So proteins, DNA, RNA, sugars, polysaccharides, All of these are polymeric molecules, biopolymers. And biology synthesizes these using complex enzymes. Before biology, there was no enzyme. So how do you catalyze these reactions? How do you do the catalysis? That's kind of where the mineral aspect comes in. So it's a really exciting field because it's fundamentally chemistry, but it's biochemistry and geochemistry combined together. And so you have to have expertise in geology, biology, chemistry. Even, there's an aspect of origins of life that studies atmospheric conditions. What was the composition of the atmosphere? What were the compositions of the rocks back then? So planetary science. It's a really beautiful, exciting field that you have to bring in expertise from lots of different fields. And it's ultimately one of the most fundamental questions we can ask as a human society, right? Is where did we come from? Where did the universe come from? But then where did life come from? Well, it's been a really fun ride for me. I started out wanting to be a geologist, and I did get my PhD in a part of geology called geochemistry, environmental geochemistry. So I was looking at the interactions of dissolved organic compounds and inorganic compounds with mineral surfaces, contaminants in groundwater. And eventually that led to me getting interested in interactions of organics and inorganics with mineral surfaces and origins of life and in bone mineralization. So I had to teach myself biochemistry. And so, I just love the fact that you can draw all these different fields together, and you never know. I started out in geology, and I'm now in a polymer science department. The beauty of being in science is that once you have a fundamental background in science, you can move around and go where your interest takes you at that time, and educate yourself or take a few additional classes here and there. But it's a really satisfying field because you get to ask such basic questions, and some of them have real life applications. Like, my interest in the interactions of organic molecules and mineral surfaces had implications for environmental chemistry, geochemistry, origins of life, even how minerals form in our body, like our bones and our teeth. And then once you understand how it happens naturally, you can devise synthetic systems, synthetic materials to make bone in your body. So how to have an orthopedic implant improvement or regenerate bone in your tissue. So there's overlap with biomedical engineering as well. And so chemical engineering, how can you make, instead of a ceramic material, can you use a polymeric material for improving bone growth? How is that going to interact with the mineral component? So there's all these different fields that come together, and I think it's fantastic. So I just want to say that, the science, engineering, technology, and math fields lay a fantastic foundation for you to pursue a huge range of potential areas once you've finished your undergrad in engineering and science, because or math. You can go on into the business world and do analytical studies there. You can go into an actual engineering or science-based career. Once you have the technical background, you can even go become, do something which is in the creative field. So, for example, you can do graphic arts. I have a former PhD student who became a popular science writer. So he has a whole PhD. He's a technically competent person, and he decided he wants to write science for the public. So he's got a nice job living in DC doing that. So once you get that technical foundation, you can do a million different things with it. So we in India and the Asian countries have a lot of respect, especially for the STEM fields, because it provides you that firm basis beyond which you can go. And then you can do the other things more easily because now you've got that quantitative background. So, I encourage students to enroll in STEM fields. So University of Akron has some excellent departments in the STEM fields, and you've got world-recognized scientists working here, and when they teach you in class, they'll be giving you the latest developments in any given field. So it's not just textbook knowledge, which is 20 years or 10 years out of date. It's the most recent, and so when you go out looking for a job, you're very marketable because you've got that very recent information. There's also a nice balance in most of the departments here between the research aspect and the teaching aspect. So if you want to get some experience working in a lab, I think any professor would be very happy to have you in their lab to do some summer research projects. In fact, all of us in polymer science and polymer engineering, almost all of us have undergraduates as well as high school students. We have a program with St. Vincent St. Mary and also some local Akron area public schools where we bring in students in the summer and they do research in our labs and we interact with them. They're guided by the graduate students. So you actually have a sense, even at the high school level, of do you want to go into a STEM field? And most of our students who have come in here at the high school level have then gone on to enroll in a major in STEM subject, either at Akron or at another university, but many of them have come to Akron.